Hi guys. Let me know in the chat on the right side if you can hear me okay. Hi Eric. So the Ayurvedic panel, I'm inviting you to come on camera. So I'm sending you now the invite. If you could approve that, and that's gonna bring you up on camera so everyone can hear you and see you. And hi everyone else. If you're now listed as a visitor, if you don't mind putting your name so we can see who you are, and maybe on the right side in the comments, let us know if you have any specific questions, where you are with your weight right now. Are you interested more in weight loss or in weight gain? So just share some ideas, some questions, and we'll try to get back to that throughout the webinar. So all of this is done for you. So the more you let us know about you, the more useful and interesting it's going to be. And we still have quite a bit of time before the official start of the webinar. So there's plenty of time to kind of say hi to everyone. So Noah, Sadia, Eric, if you could please, okay, perfect. And Sadia, I'm putting you on screen. Hi guys.
Hi.
Hi Sadia, hi Eric.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
Okay.
So we can have only, just a note to everyone, we can have only 4 speakers at a time on the screen. So I'm gonna sometimes move you around and switch the camera. So once Myra is on, I might switch us around while I introduce everyone and then when I ask questions. And since we'll have so many people online, if you can kind of stay in one place, not move around too much, then the picture is going to be probably the best possible picture we can get.
Cool. Hi, Sadia. Clearly it's Aaron and not Noah. Noah's on his way.
Okay, cool.
Hi, how are you?
Really good. So
Well,
is
we'll
everyone's
do
volume
Myra.
okay?
Is Myra on?
I can hear Nadia very, very loud and clear, but I couldn't hear Sadia so well.
Can you hear me now?
Very poorly.
Not,
Sadia, do you have a headset?
I do.
So maybe try to raise the volume on your computer.
Okay. How's it now?
Yes, better. A little bit higher.
Much better?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Perfect.
I don't know if talking like this is better or if you can still hear me. Can you still hear me from down here? Can you hear me from down here?
Yes.
that sounds a little better.
Okay.
Okay, so we still have a little bit of time. Hi, Mark. So we have some people saying hi to everyone. Mike says hi. So guys,
Hi.
if you're already here, and maybe let us know how you know about Banyan Botanicals, how you heard about the webinar. Share some questions or thoughts on weight loss or weight gain, so we kind of know where you are so we can help you better. And we'll be officially starting in about 25 minutes. Eric, I'm going to put you off screen for now while you're walking around.
Sadia, look at that gorgeous, healthy hair.
Thank you. I brushed it today.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Nadia and I were just discussing that we'll send an email out in the morning with the webinar to everyone that participates.
Erin, it's being recorded. Since we already started, so it's going to be recorded.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay. Very good.
Hi, I see Myra is on, and I'm going to invite her on camera. Hi, Sarah. Yes, Mark. So everyone here, we will try to send you the link for precast recording. So as Erin mentioned, there will be a link once we have the recording, and you'll be able to watch the replay. So Erin and Sadia and Noah and Myra, once you guys, you'll probably see there will be people commenting on the right side, so feel free to jump in and reply to them either on the chat or you can just reply in the camera. And Myra, your camera is doesn't seem to be working. Yeah, I don't know, Myra, can you see that we kind of see just a black screen? Hi, Eric. Did you find the spot?
Yeah, the baby was making too much noise in the other room, so.
It's okay. Sadia. Okay, so I think once we start in 20 minutes, Erin, do you mind if once we start at 8 p.m., I'll put Myra on instead of you?
Oh yeah, that's perfectly fine.
Okay, and then we'll bring everyone back. Okay. So for now, you can guys feel free to chat with participants on the right side. Say hi to everyone. There are also comments on Facebook. So if throughout the whole call you hear something interesting and want to share some insights, feel free to leave a comment right below on Facebook, and it's going to show up on your wall, so all your friends are going to see it. So sharing is caring. Share all the smart, interesting thoughts with your friends.
Great.
How are your holidays, guys?
Okay. Busy.
Good. Busy can be good or bad. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
Myra on. Let's see. Myra, can you try to speak? Let's see if we can hear you. Myra, can you try to say something or write some? Oh no, Myra, we can't see you or hear you. Can you see us okay? Let us know on the right side. Yeah, I'm not sure why we can't see you.
Please wait 10 seconds. In the video feed to publish and close this window.
Yeah.
The whole thing? Log out? I mean, like,
Is this Myra?
Okay.
Myra, is this, are we hearing you? Maybe not.
I heard someone.
Yeah,
That
I
was
think.
definitely
don't
Myra.
Hi, Erin. We're having a little bit
Hi,
of
guys.
trouble with connecting to Myra, but
Hi, Eric.
hopefully
Hi,
figure it
Erin.
out.
Happy New Year.
Same to you. Thank you.
Guys, we have about 15
Yes,
minutes
I'm here.
to go before the official start of the webinar, so you can take a breather, do your alternative nostril breathing.
That's great. Great idea.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, we can hear you.
And can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
What's wrong with it? Something fixes itself.
Should I put some music on so everyone can relax for now?
Sure.
Your skin is manufactured to feed the micro.
Can you hear the music?
Loud.
Yes? Loud?
Yeah, loudly.
Okay, so we have officially 15 minutes before we start the webinar. Hey, Noah.
Hi.
Hi, Noah.
Hi.
We're waiting for
We're just putting some
Myra.
background music since we're not starting for another 15 minutes.
Actually, Myra is there's only four screens at a time, so you can all go back.
Here we go. Yay, Myra. Ah, very good. Okay. I think it just takes a little while to get farther out.
You're streaming from far away, so.
Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna scoot it. Sorry about that.
No, I'm gonna put you back on. We can have only 4 people at a time. So once I start introducing everyone, I'll switch you guys around. So whenever someone is speaking, you're gonna be on the screen, but sometimes when you're not speaking, I'm gonna put you off screen because we can't have more than 4 people at a time. And unfortunately, me as a producer, I can't put my video off. Sorry, sorry. And I think, and guys, chip in on the right side if you feel like it. So Deborah is sharing on the right side some of her insights. I'm going to put it on the screen so everyone can see it. So if you guys feel like you want to share something in terms of what's happening in your life, whether you're interested in weight loss or weight gain, what has been your past experience? Have you tried Ayurveda for that purpose? So we know a little bit about you, and that's going to give us a little bit more background so we can support you better in your journey. And I think what would be interesting to touch upon is not just the food, but maybe also the emotional aspect and how it's not only what we eat, but also the habits that surround eating can contribute to either weight gain or weight loss. So once we start talking, feel free to share your inputs on that as well. Welcome anyone new who's just joined. So what we're doing now, we still have about 10 minutes before we officially start the webinar. So if you have something to share with us, please do on the right side, and we're going to see it in the comments. And that's going to help our panel, our speakers to support you and understand you in a better way. Do you guys want to, Sadia, Eric, Myra, share where you're calling from? Let's start with Sadia.
Sure, I'm calling for. I'm in New York City, and this is where I've based my practice out of. I graduated from the Ayurvedic Institute in June, and I'm kind of freshly getting started here. So I'm happy to be here.
I'm going to talk a little bit about everyone more, but now it's just like a general hi. Eric, where are you from?
I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Oh, how's the weather?
It's in the 40s. Not bad.
Okay.
It's not Miami, but, you know.
I'm in New York.
Oh, you're in New York now. Okay. You're hard to keep track of.
Myra, where are you from?
I am from Kauai, and in Hawaii, and it's very nice here today.
Beautiful. Yeah, your pictures on the farms look amazing.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing to be able to do it.
I bet. I was looking at your website today and at the pictures. I was like, I want to go visit.
Yeah. Are you growing a lot of your herbs? Great when we. Are you growing a lot of your herbs out there, Myra? I grow some of them, and we just started. Yeah.
Myra, you're freezing a little bit.
So we started growing. Yeah, we have a. I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Yeah, you're freezing a little bit.
But we grow ashwagandha, and we've started growing amla trees, which is a longer term project. And we have many other things lemongrass, ginger, turmeric, um,
Cool.
and some other. I'm gonna try to sign in again
Okay, sounds good.
because I'm getting a lot of
Okay,
feedback.
I'm gonna put Noah on. Noah, come back on the screen.
Yay.
Where are you now?
I'm in Ashland, Oregon.
Noah, do you have a headset?
Got a headset, yeah.
Welcome, guys. We have about 7 minutes before we start. If you could share on your right if you have any specific questions about weight loss or weight gain. And I'll start with bios in just a few minutes, and then we'll get to questions. And we have a really fun outline for the whole call.
Can you guys hear me with my headset?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a question or request from Tanas. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. So once we start talking, Tanas is asking if we could mention food addiction and what Ayurveda recommends for it. So once we get to questions, and if you feel like there's a right place to mention that, please do, because I think a lot of women would find that extremely interesting, and maybe men too. So we have about 84 of us patiently waiting until it's 8 p.m. on the East Coast, 5 p.m. on the Pacific Coast.
Mhm.
Guys, we have about just 4 minutes before we start, and I'm going to start with introductions and just getting a general outline for the webinar. So for now, if you have a moment to give us a note just about who you are, what made you join the webinar, if you have a specific question, just put it right on the right in the dialog box, and we'll make sure to read the question. So Nikki is asking, I'm following cancer prevention protocol with diet after dealing with breast cancer. Any suggestions on how to get some of my weight off would be helpful. Hi, Jody from Utica. Hi, Kevin Clark. Well, it's really good to see so many of you guys. Hi, Tisha. So I'm recognizing some of you from Facebook. Um, thank you for coming live. It's really cool to interact with you not only on Facebook and newsletters, but actually see you in person on webinars. So thank you for making it. And if you want to put a picture on your account, so we can put a face to the name, that would be really cool too. And once again, right now we have just 1 minute before we start this really cool webinar, this Ayurvedic panel. So if you want to introduce yourself on the right side, say hi, have a question, please go ahead and do so. Noah is having the last minute setup, and we're going to be ready to go.
Thanks.
Take a deep breath, everyone. Hi, Mary. Okay, so we're going to start. Welcome everyone to the first Ayurvedic panel, where we're going to have 4 Ayurvedic professionals, people who, I think what's so unique about this webinar is the panel that we have today is not just the people who know the theory of Ayurveda or who read a lot of books about Ayurveda, but actually people who practice Ayurveda in their daily living, which is such a huge difference between knowing the theory and actually knowing how it feels to follow that lifestyle through a personal experience. So then when you try to help others and share that experience, it comes in a more authentic, real way. And so today what we're going to try is to share some insights to maybe help change or create a new perspective, but not just give you a huge to-do list that's impossible to follow. And the reason why we decided with Bennion Botanicals, so Erin Douglas, who is behind the scenes, but she was a huge force in creating this webinar. And the reason why we decided to create that webinar is that we know that the theme of weight loss is a very important topic for many of you in the beginning of the year. So every year, everyone starts saying that I want to lose 10, 15 pounds, and then the next year we kind of come back to the same point. So now in the comments, if some of you could share if there's a particular amount of weight that you're losing to gain or to weight, to lose or to gain, please let us know in the comments. But basically, because it is such a big topic, we decided to share some insights that might be different from things that you read online or that you heard at the gym, or read in the magazines, because perspective of Ayurveda is slightly different, and hopefully it's going to be very useful and helpful for you in achieving those goals. And we have a very interesting panel, people from different backgrounds that will be sharing their experiences. And I'll just introduce you briefly to everyone. And in our follow-up email, you'll be able to read in a little bit more detail about everyone's practice and also check out everyone's website. So we have Sadia Khan, who is an Ayurvedic health practitioner in New York, and she completed her Ayurvedic studies at the Ayurvedic Institute with Dr. Vasant Lad. She's also a doula and Ayur yoga instructor and the founder of Home Shanti, an organizing business where she helps people bring calm and clarity to home and offices, which, believe me, is very much connected to weight loss, because if you have clutter at home, you're going to have clutter in your diet, and that's going to show up as extra weight. So Sadia, that's I think that's a really good addition. And then we
Thank you,
have
Nadia.
Eric Grasse. He's the founder and medical director of Unity Medicine in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he practices integrative medicine, functional medicine, and Ayurveda. He is board certified by the American Board of Family Medicine, a clinical assistant professor at the University of New Mexico, and serves on the board of directors at the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. He is also a father and a husband. And I think Eric is one of the actually very few people in Ayurveda world who has an MD and still chooses to incorporate Ayurveda in his practice, which kind of supports that validity that Ayurveda is effective, and it's not just the theory or kind of unpractical wisdom that came from thousands of years into a modern world. It has science behind it, and that's why Eric is still practicing it. So welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm gonna put Myra on the screen in a moment, but before I'm gonna introduce Noah. And Noah is a product specialist at Banyan Botanicals and is well versed in Ayurveda, massage, and yoga. Noah is the founder of Rhythm of Healing. He has also worked as a lead Panchakarma technician at Ashland Ayurveda and as a field intern supervisor at the California College of Ayurveda. And as far as I know, Noah also leads seasonal detoxes, right?
That is correct. Using Banyan products, I lead seasonal weight loss management.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be also very helpful to us, because a lot of people associate cleansing and weight loss. So we'll definitely have to talk about that. Now, Noah, I'm going to put you off screen and I'm going to bring in Myra. So, and our last expert is Myra Lewin, the founder of Halipuli Ayurveda and Yoga, and she joins us from Hawaiian Island in Kauai. She's an Ayurvedic practitioner since 1999 and a yoga teacher trainer. Myra has authored 2 Ayurvedic health books, Freedom in Your Relationship with Food, who doesn't want that, right? And Simple Ayurvedic Recipes. Having healed herself from leukemia and cancer, Myra now guides others to harness the power of Ayurveda and yoga with the goal of connecting with spiritual self, always in mind. So we have an amazing group of people ready to answer your questions. And some of the things that I wanted to mention before we jump into specific questions is that traditionally, this current time of the year is not necessarily regarded as the perfect time for weight loss or for kind of a cleansing diet. But what I find personally with my wellness coaching clients is that a lot of the weight loss happens not only with diet, but also with repatterning certain habits. So if we stop eating chocolate every night after dinner, bar after bar, we might lose weight, but it's not happening because we're on a reducing diet. So what we're going to talk about today is not necessarily something that you have to wait until springtime to implement. It should be something that's going to be relatively simple to implement and should be effective even in the winter time. So one of the things that we're going to start with is the Ayurvedic perspective on weight management. And we're going to talk to Sadia and Mara about it. So Sadia, we're going to start with you. So I guess let us know what does Ayurveda think about weight management?
Well, I think in weight management, common weight loss methods don't always work because they don't always take into account a person holistically. In Ayurveda, each person is seen as being unique, body, mind, and spirit. So each person is born with their unique constitution or prakruti, and they have their place of imbalance or vikruti. And according to that, what foods may be optimum for one person may not be good for another. So it takes a very case-by-case basis on weight management.
Okay. Maya, what would you have to add to this question? How do you think Ayurveda sees the concept of weight management, and how is it different from a traditional approach to weight management?
There are a number of things that are different. As Satya mentioned, the holistic approach, meaning that everything that we do matters. Everything affects everything else in us as we're holistic beings. But also, when we think about Ayurveda, we think about it in terms of balance and harmony, that we want to move in that direction. You know, that's what has us feel the best. And so what happens then is that as we have practices that support moving in that direction of balance and harmony, then weight management actually becomes something that isn't something we have to think about eventually. Imagine that you can actually not have to go to the beginning of every year and say, oh, well, I have to change. So in the Ayurvedic approach is that we have to look at, at the root cause of things as well as everything that's happening in life. So for example, if I have a difficult time in dealing with my life in general, and I'm not accepting things and that, then it's difficult to make change. And if you're having a weight problem, then usually something needs to change. So we need to look at what are the possibilities and what's going to help take us in the direction of balance and harmony. And that moderate approach, not extreme in any direction, is what really brings us to a place where then our weight is something that's it's something that's very natural, actually. That's what happens to it. It's when we do unnatural acts that it becomes a problem. Yes, and then we have to deal with it. And then we can learn and grow from that process of dealing with it. So it's very much an emotional thing as well as the actual practices, how we eat, what we do, how we choose to conduct our lives. All of those things matter and have an effect.
And Ayurveda
the other thing too, I think,
goes into account.
Ayurveda does take all of that into account, and really more, because once you come to a place that you feel like, okay, I'm doing these certain things these certain ways, and I'm getting the results that I want to get. For example, if you say, okay, well, I have 20 pounds I want to lose, and then we would say, for example, as you mentioned, that we would say, okay, start some things now. You start to make some changes to prepare, and then later in the spring or in the autumn as it's appropriate, then you would do some kind of cleansing and rejuvenation to just bring you to that place of balance. And then you maintain that. That's the thing, is that we can't do things for a diet or for a change and then expect that we're going to keep doing all those other things that we used to do. So we have to really recognize
a sustainable approach to life versus something that you do for a period of time, lose the weight, and then go back to the old ways.
Exactly, exactly. We really have to take a look at what and why we're doing it. And the thing that's so wonderful about Ayurveda and its holistic nature is that, when food became something that was, it used to be about nourishing and nurturing ourselves. And then in the 20th century, it got a little mixed up. And even into the 1970s was when fast food came, and then restaurants became really dominant, and all kinds of other social reasons that things changed. We started making food something, a form of entertainment, and it became sort of a fast mechanical thing. And we forgot the spiritual nature of it, and the reverence that we need to have for what nourishes us and nurtures us.
Yeah.
And so that's what Ayurveda has, very simple ways. There's not an exact way, but you can sit and before you eat, be very conscious about what you're doing, to say a little prayer or to just say an acknowledgement of appreciation for the food. Those things are, what make a big difference in how our body is able to process what we eat, which then makes a difference in how much we're going to eat and whether or not we'll utilize it appropriately, forming good tissues that.
So
Go
many
ahead.
wonderful things that I'm hearing in what you're saying. There's mindful eating, there's gratitude, there's awareness in terms of where the food comes from and how it affects in our body. There's also how we digest things. And Eric, let me bring you in here, since you have this unique perspective of both an MD and an Ayurvedic practitioner. What do you think? Like, since what we're hearing here, be mindful, be grateful, know what your body needs, and then weight is not going to be a problem. Is this what you've seen in your practice, and do you think it's enough, or we still need to have some Western tools to help the weight loss?
I think most of the time it's enough. If you're eating consciously, if you're surrounded with love and you have stress control, you're getting enough exercise, you're getting out in nature, then people will tend to have the weight that reflects their unique constitution. Obviously, Ayurveda speaks immensely about individual variation with regard to the doshas, the constitutional types, etc. But certainly there are cases, I think increasingly more cases in the modern world where even those things may not allow somebody to maintain a healthy weight. And that's where I dig a little bit deeper and look for environmental toxicity. I look at the health of the gut flora with specialized testing. I may look at, more and more, there's more research coming out about different hormones and that control appetite and digestion. And so for me, I always look at it as a fascinating exploration of the ancient Ayurveda in modern medical terms. And I just increasingly see functional medicine and integrative medicine echoing the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. So that's what just I'm so excited about, and it keeps me so motivated to keep learning and studying, is that it's just validation for what the ancient wisdom has been saying for thousands of years.
That's really cool. Thank you. So the next question is going to be probably one of the most interesting that a lot of people will have in mind. Like, we have this concept that it's all about, a lot of it is about calories. If we eat less, exercise more, then we're gonna lose the weight. If we reduce fat or reduce sugar, we're gonna lose weight. If we kind of restrict ourselves, go on a juice fast, and then try to go back to normal ways of eating, we'll lose weight. And that's where a lot of this concept that we want the results very quickly, preferably yesterday, goes in and gets in the way of a sustainable lifestyle change. So Myra, why do you think those type of changes are not sustainable, and why so often they don't lead to permanent weight loss? Because people start with that, they do well for a month, but then next year they start with the same 15 pounds that they want to lose.
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, that if we don't make a good, clear connection between what we're doing and the results we're getting, then in the back of our mind all the time, we're wanting to go back to the old way. And then the approaches that you mentioned, such as juice cleansing, or eating salads, or exercising more and eating less, all of these things can have a temporary effect. But again, if all of the same energy is running, then it's going to go back to the old way. But they don't work because the mind goes into deprivation, for example. If you're juice cleansing, let's say, for a period of time, there's people usually have some sense of satisfaction, and then they start to, in the back of the mind, they're really looking for more. But what also happens with that is that there's not enough grounding food, there's not enough augmenting food that's adding to the body to help keep them in a place of being grounded and just feeling okay. And that's where we see people frequently go from the diet back into binging of some sort, or eating excessive amounts of something. So that the diets tend to be very extreme in their nature, and there could be a case where that's called for, but in the general sense, it works much better if we make some changes that are long-term changes, and then let the weight start to come off gradually. And then and I always encourage people to take, somewhere between 1 and 3 changes that they're willing to make, they feel like they can handle, and start with those, and then gradually start to make some other changes. And that way the weight comes off very gradually, and the people can feel, how they start to feel better, and they make that connection to what they're doing, and that helps people to make change as well. I had somebody just last week who said, I just did 2 things that you suggested. I started chewing my food, and I stopped eating at the first burp. And in 2 weeks, she lost 7 pounds without trying. She just did those 2 things. Now, when she started stopped eating at the first burp, she, in the beginning, was eating a little bit less than her norm. And then it sort of evened itself out. And then her weight started to settle in. And now it's been a couple of more weeks, and it feels like it's rearranged, she said, and it feels much better for her. So just an example.
That's a really cool concept, and I read about it for the first time, I think on your website actually, to stop eating at the first burp. Tell us a little bit more about it, because I think it's going to be interesting for most people, because I think a lot of people, they either burp all the time and they're aware of themselves burping, or then most people, they'll be like, I never burp. That's what I thought. When I read the article, I was like,
Yeah.
I don't burp. How do I, should I just keep eating?
Yeah, I didn't either. And, it was one of these things, I guess I'd like to comment about, that this is something that I learned about 15 years ago. Well, it's about 17 years ago. And it took me quite a few years before I would ever respect it. And oh my goodness, did it make such a huge difference for me in terms of how I felt. And that's really was sort of the thing that made everything get so much easier. So the burp, some people burp all the time. That's a sign that there's undigested food sitting in the intestines. And that's going to cause problems. But what should they do?
Yeah, should they stop eating?
If there's not stop eating altogether necessarily, but take a look at what you're eating. Then we have to look at what kind of foods you're eating and what combinations you're eating that's causing that indigestion. A lot of times people are eating standing up, or they're eating in front of the computer as well, or they're eating, for example, an excessive amount of garlic. Then that will start to cause that problem. Eating fruit along with, for example, legumes and a full meal. Those kinds of things will also start to cause that burping all the time. And then the person who doesn't feel the burp at all usually is going too fast or is a little wound up inside. And so a
That's
good
me.
thing to do then is to, yeah, yes, and it is me too. And a good thing to do is that when you sit down to eat, sitting down, that you take a nice deep breath, maybe 2 or 3, and just calm down inside and really say, okay, I'm going to calm down inside. And I had to actually say that to myself. And once I did that, though, then I was able to take the food in. Then eventually the burp started to come, and I started to be aware of when my body really said, okay, that's enough food. Because my mind, you know, I came from a family that eats large amounts of food. And you know, my mind was tuned to that. So it was a retuning, but what happened was feeling so much better afterwards, feeling satisfied by the meal and feeling appropriately hungry in a period of time before the next meal.
So guys, making sure that you use this particular tip, which is, I think it's very applicable to a lot of us, and it's something that's very easy to start noticing. So see if you can pay attention and stop at the first burp, like Myra mentioned. And maybe if you did notice whether you're burping often or never at all, share with us in the comments on the right side, and let us know about it. We would love to know. And I think that's such an incredible way to know how much to actually eat. It's not measuring the portion in hands. It's not looking at the pictures and knowing how many calories you ate, but it's actually listening to your body. And that's seems like an easy way to actually do it. So thank you, Myra, for sharing that tip. I think that's going to be very handy for everyone. So, and guys, I'm looking to the right side to hear some comments. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd love to make one more comment about it if I could.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that is that when you first begin doing that, if you've been burping all the time, then the burp will come fairly quickly, and you'll feel like you didn't get to eat very much. But if you honor it, there's a period where you're actually cleaning out the indigestion. And so that will progress. You know, the next meal you'll be able to eat a little more and a little more. And some people, that's pretty significant. And for some
so
people, it's not very
I don't
much
know if you
difference
guys
at
were able
all.
to hear Myra because I think her connection is going out a little bit. But basically what I heard her saying is that in the beginning, when you start paying attention to the burp, you might notice that you can't eat too much, but that might be a sign of indigestion. And if you honor that, then over time, the indigestion is going to clear up and you'll be able to eat more. So now we're going to move into Eric. Thank you, Myra. And the next question that we have is more about the lifestyle. So weight loss is not just about the food that we eat. It's also, as you mentioned, about how we manage stress, because that's going to affect our cravings. It's going to affect how fast we eat, what types of food we reach for. So let's talk about some things that people can either take out or add into their lifestyle that will affect their weight loss or weight gain, but not in a direct way. So not just like the calories that they're consuming.
Well, from a general perspective, and I think this would be echoed by any of the panel members, you know, following an Ayurvedic lifestyle is, I like to call it getting back in touch with the laws of nature. I mean, all of our ancestors were very in touch with the laws of nature. They spent much more time outside. They watched the changing of the day, the changing of the seasons. They worked the land. They had to walk and ride bicycles and didn't rely so much on modern technology. So Ayurveda, the way I teach it to people, is really just getting back in touch with the laws of nature. And to echo what some of the others have said already, the word balance really comes to mind. I mean, that's at the essence of what Ayurveda preaches is balance. So you have opposites that balance each other. So one of the things I think is helpful as you're incorporating the principles of Ayurveda into your life is to briefly learn the concept of the gunas which are the qualities, of which there are 10 opposite pairs: hot opposite cold, light opposite heavy, dull opposite sharp, etc. And try to experience the gunas in your day-to-day life, because every substance has gunas, has qualities. So animate objects, inanimate objects, food, herbs, people, the weather, and think about what's going on with the qualities in your life, and then use the principle of how opposites balance. So if you're particularly heavy, whether it's literally heavy because you're overweight, or whether it's emotionally heavy, or your attitude is heavy and you're feeling sluggish, then you need to lighten through lightening foods and lightening activities, movement, etc. So that's something that is easy to understand and incorporate into your daily life. The other thing that
Eric, before
Yeah.
you move into another thing, let's give a little bit more examples of using the opposite qualities, because I think it's such a perfect tool that's
Yeah.
simple to use. You don't need to understand too much Ayurveda and too many theories to you start using this principle right away.
Yeah.
So, for example, now it's really cold outside. We wake up a little bit sluggish, maybe want to stay in bed covered with a blanket the whole day and watch TV.
Right.
Um,
So unless you're sick and you need to be resting, then you have to counteract that, and you have to get up and get moving, and you have to heat up.
some food.
So,
Give us some examples.
well, movement is a great way to increase heat in the body. So whether it's a asana practice, a yoga asana practice, whether it's walking, whether it's just starting to do some chores around the house, that is a way to heat. There are heating breath techniques that you can use. You can literally heat up with a cup of warm water or some hot tea. You can eat
Which
heating
tea would be
foods.
good?
Well, you could use something like ginger tea. You could use even, even spicier tea, cinnamon, cardamom. Cardamom may be a little more cooling, but adding something like cinnamon or ginger, that would be my two of them that I would go to. And then you can eat, you add spice to your food. You can use foods that have, generally fiery colors often tend to be heating. So you can look at the qualities of the physical qualities of the food. The color of the food is often a good guide for whether it's heating or cooling. Not always, but it's a good start. You want to favor cooked foods, warm foods instead of cold foods. In the middle of winter, it's not the time to be eating ice cream. It's just a crime against your intelligence, basically, to be doing that. Ice cream is a treat for the hot summer day. It's not the time to be eating ice water, for example. Ayurveda would actually rarely suggest ice water, except maybe if you were overheating in the summer and you needed to cool down a little bit. So simple opposite qualities. If you're feeling slow, you need to speed up. If you're feeling dull, you need to sharpen. So that's a pretty basic principle that you can
Yeah.
follow.
So I thank you, Eric. I think that one was really good. Another thing that I want to ask Sadia, which is also it's going to go in hands of the Ayurvedic lifestyle and how it can help us support the natural weight loss. So if we think about it this way, weight loss is not necessarily the goal, but how can we make it a side effect of the changes that we're creating? And one of the questions in the beginning of the webinar was food addiction and emotional eating. And I think for a lot of people, emotional eating is a result of feeling overly stressed or not knowing how to manage stress in a easy, efficient way that doesn't take a lot of time. So Sadia, what can Ayurveda do to help us manage stress in a better, more efficient kind of time that doesn't take half an hour a day? Short.
Yeah, there's a lot of short things that we can do. really at the heart of all of the Ayurvedic lifestyle is becoming mindful and adding mindfulness into the day. And that can begin right upon waking. As my teacher says, one should never leave their bed even without saying a prayer or some kind of an affirmation or giving some kind of gratitude for the day. So just like that, you begin right in the beginning of the day. Also, having a nighttime ritual is very important. It's very often, a lot of my clients that I see here in New York, to have some screen time, to be on the computer, and then going straight to bed after that. So having stress management techniques like Nadi Shodhana or alternate nostril breathing, or even having a warm cup of milk with turmeric and nutmeg and cardamom and some honey. That's a really good good way to kind of get you ready for bed, have a nighttime ritual. And the nutmeg is a natural narcotic, actually, so it puts you right to sleep. Um, so having some kind of rituals throughout the day. When it comes to eating, really bringing mindfulness into the eating. I really liked what Myra said about taking 3 deep belly breaths and really assessing what's going on. Why are you eating? What emotions are you feeling at the time? And once you become more mindful of all these things, I feel like weight management comes, because Ayurveda in essence is about following the rhythms of nature. And when you do this, you automatically go towards a healthier weight as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. So there's in the comment section, we have one question that is a part of the Ayurvedic lifestyle, oil pulling. And Virginia is asking whether there is a connection between oil pulling changing the bacteria population in the gut and weight management as a result. So Eric, you mentioned bacteria before. Do you think you can comment on that question? Is oil pulling somehow connected to the growth of health bacteria?
I mean, I think if the question is, would oil pulling actually promote the growth of bacteria, I don't think so. Bacteria need sugar, essentially. So, I mean, I think that oil pulling can have some benefits, but I wouldn't say there's contraindication
Well,
with
the question
regard to
was about the benefits. The question was, can
whether
oil pulling beneficially affect the good bacteria, and then because of that lead to weight loss?
I think that the benefits of oil pulling are probably due to other factors than supporting the natural bacteria. I think if anything, it helps health of the tissue in the mouth. Although I personally think that the promotion of oil pulling, the way it's promoted now, is not really honoring the way it's spoken of in the ancient texts. So I wouldn't
Okay,
count on
tell
that
us
as a
more.
major
Tell
technique.
us more. How do you think it's a
Well,
practice worth implementing? And if it is, I guess, how would you advise somebody to implement it? Because
I think
sorry, I'll just give you a little bit of a background why I think it's important to cover. I personally noticed that if I do oil swishing, I guess more than oil pulling, with coconut oil first thing in the morning, my cravings throughout the day are going to be a lot less, and the sensitivity in terms of the taste is a lot higher. But I also feel the same way if I do kind of swishing with trifala after meals, and then I don't have any cravings at all. Which I think
right.
cravings is a huge thing for people trying to lose weight. So do you think oil pulling or trifala mouthwash is something that people should try to implement?
I think the benefit of these things is because it brings daily routine into the life, and it's a purifying practice, just like splashing the face with cold water in the morning, just like touching the ground with your hand and bringing it to your heart might be in the morning, saying the prayer, as Sadia mentioned. All these things bring daily routine, our dinacharya, as it's spoken of in Ayurveda. And this helps us be conscious. It helps us to honor the temple that is our body. And it will therefore allow us to have that sharpness of mind and that discernment of decision making throughout the day when we're faced with choices about food. What I don't think that oil pulling is a way to detoxify from heavy metals or to detoxify from chemical burden, the way it's done in the West versus the way it was more described in the ancient texts.
Cool. Thank you. Quick question. Let's do it with Noah. Triphala can be a big part of the detoxification and cleansing, but Triphala has many different ways that we can use it, right? So what do you think about Triphala mouthwash? Can we use it to kind of restore how we taste food? Because, for example, Nancy from Illinois, she's saying that I'm a food addict, sugar addict, and I can't leave sugar behind. So I think for people who do feel addicted to sugar, a lot of it comes from kind of a desensitization of taste buds, because it takes sweeter and sweeter things to taste that sugar and to get that pleasure. Do you think doing something like Triphala mouthwash can help break that addiction?
Yeah, Nadia, I completely agree with you. Excuse me. I have found that, as far as the Triphala goes, Triphala has this nice, gentle detoxifying action on the entire body. And so if you're using that in the mouth with a Triphala mouthwash, then that detoxifying action in the mouth will help to invigorate the tissues in a way that allows them to have more sensitivity. And so when that sensitivity is increased in the tissues, then we're going to taste more. Our taste buds are going to become more alive. We're going to become more vibrant, more sensitive to the foods that we're eating. So because of that sensitivity, then that allows us to maybe choose foods that we may not normally choose, or to recognize the stimulating qualities of sugar or the stimulating qualities of coffee or stimulating qualities of fast food or industrialized food. And so that is an excellent way to help with those cravings. I would also mention, although another Banyan Botanicals formula, it's Sweet Ease, and Sweet Ease has an herb in it called Chardunica, and that herb is excellent at helping the taste buds. It actually kind of nullifies the sweet taste buds, so that when we taste something that has a sweet flavor, we don't taste the sweet. So a chocolate chip cookie, for example, if you're eating that, you don't taste the sugar in the cookie, you just taste the bitter of the chocolate, and maybe there's some walnuts in there and you taste that as well. So that's another formula that can be used to help with any sort of cravings, especially when they relate to our sweet taste buds.
Yeah, so Nancy, I hope that answered your question. And I'm putting a link here for Triphala. And Banyan Botanicals has probably one of the best Triphala that I've tasted, and I like my Triphala, so I know the way different ones taste. So the next question, we're gonna stay. Actually, you know what, guys? One quick question before we move away from Ayurvedic lifestyle. Where do you think having a relaxation practice or an oil massage practice comes in? Do you think calming down the nervous system would actually have more of a reducing cravings and reducing appetite effect, or is it again just because it's a part of a routine and routine is like structure, that's the only effect that it has? Let's go with Noah.
So yeah, as far as the oil massage goes, I feel like weight management has a lot to do with stress. You know, the more we're in that fight or flight reaction, the more stressed that we feel, the more we tend to gravitate towards foods that are quick fuel, that are snack foods, that may not be the best choice for us if we're being very mindful of what we're choosing. And so the oil massage is possibly one of the best ways to decrease the vata dosha. And the vata dosha is an Ayurvedic concept that really relates to this stress response. And so when we calm the vata dosha from going in excess, then we're able to manage stress more effectively. And so through the oil massages, the oil, like Eric was saying earlier, the oil has very opposite qualities, opposite gunas of the vata dosha. The oil is heavy, it's unctuous, it's very warming to a certain extent, especially when we're doing the warm oil massage. And so the vata dosha is more light, it's more cool, and so these opposite qualities help us to balance ourselves and then cope with the stress more effectively.
Yeah, I'm with you so much. Whenever I get a massage, or whenever, even if I put vata oil or sesame oil on my feet, it makes a huge difference. So, guys, if you've never tried that, I would recommend putting a little bottle of lavender oil, like with lavender oil or sesame oil, and creating a routine where you put that every day on your feet to just calm your nervous system. So I'm putting a link for Vata massage oil on the screen. And one question before we move away from Triphala is from Tisha, and she's asking, since Triphala is a fruit, should it be taken first thing in the morning? I have taken it at night a few nights and have noticed indigestion. I am Pitta Vata. No, since you are a specialist with all the herbs, do you have a comment on that?
Well, Triphala is traditionally recommended to be taken on an empty stomach. That would depend on when you had your dinner. If Tisha's taking it at night, it's possible that if she's having a late dinner, then it could cause some indigestion. Fruit in general is best taken alone or at the very beginning of the meal. So Triphala is often taken before bed after 3 or 4 hours have passed since the previous meal, or in the morning on an empty stomach. And so that's the optimal way to take the Triphala.
Okay, great. Hopefully, Tisha, it answered your question. And Erica, in terms of should Triphala be in powder or liquid form, to make the mouthwash, I think if I'm correct, you just make Triphala tea, right, Noah?
That is correct. Yeah, the powder is the easiest form
Yeah.
to use.
So now we're going to move to a slightly more specific question with Eric and Sadia, and we'll let Myra jump in after that. So how does diet support weight loss in the body? What specific foods should we be eating? What specific foods should we be avoiding if the goal is weight loss? And that one, guys, take notes because Ayurveda has some slightly different insights from what you would hear from a regular weight loss specialist. So, Sadia, let's start with you. To make it easier for people, let's keep it between 3 to 5 foods to add and 3 to 5 foods to avoid from you, and then the same with Eric.
Okay. Well, all in all, I want to talk about how we should be favoring fresh foods, or what we call sattvic foods. And those are foods that are really filled with prana, or life energy. These are foods that bring about clarity and calmness and creativity. They're the opposite of tamasic foods, which will bring about dullness and lethargy maybe, and you'll feel heavy and foggy. So sattvic foods are going to be fresh foods. They're going to be light and pure. They're going to include raw honey, rice, most fruits, organic milk, almonds, uh, and it's good to focus on these foods and try to have less tamasic foods. And tamasic foods would be anything that is like leftover foods, processed foods, microwaved foods, anything that's canned. Also, alcohol, beef, mushrooms are tamasic as well. So those are some foods to kind of favor as far as foods that, like they said, as far as the gunas go, you want foods that are going to make you feel light if you're feeling heavy. So to balance, you want to eat these light or sattvic foods.
Okay, perfect. Eric, can you give us a little bit more specific examples? If we like take this food out, add this food in. We got the whole idea.
Yeah, well,
have more fresh foods, have less leftover foods. A little bit more specific.
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of course, both Ayurveda and functional medicine, and it's hard for me to ignore one in favor of the other. So, sort of adding on what Sadia said, for me, looking really at supporting detoxification is important, because if you're not detoxifying well, then you're not burning fuel well, and you may have issues with weight gain or weight loss for that matter. So supporting phase 1 detoxification which is happening not just in the liver but elsewhere in the body. All the cells have a cytochrome P450 enzyme system that is responsible for basically handling the oxidation and reduction and hydrolysis of compounds, and those there is a lot of assistance gained through the eating of cruciferous vegetables. So your brassica family, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, bok choy, watercress, kale. These all are incredible foods for helping support the first phase of detoxification in the body. And I think that if incorporated properly, they could support somebody who was needing to lose weight, and somebody to some extent who was needing to gain weight. So those are very important. Furthermore, other fruits and vegetables that have phytonutrients that support phase 1 detox. So foods with quercetin like apples, foods with beta carotene, vitamin C, vitamin E, micronutrients, selenium contained in certain nuts, for example, etc. So cruciferous vegetables, if you can remember one thing, they're amazing. Then phase 2 detoxification involves essentially the modification of the byproducts of phase 1, where you have to conjugate foods to make them water soluble or chemicals. And so this is methylation and sulfonation and glucuronidation. And so there we go to the sulfur-containing foods. So that's the allium family with onions, garlic, and leeks. And then to some extent fish has some of that. And then a really good food or spice actually that's sulfur-containing is called asafoetida or hing. Which is found in a traditional recipe called hingvastak, which I believe Banyan sells hingvastak powder. And so that is a sulfur-containing spice, and that will help with phase 2 detox. So those are a few things to add. Now, as far as removing foods, I mean, I really do find in my experience with helping people lose weight that refined carbohydrates are important to take out, and so this again is a modification of a potentially healing food that in modern times we've kind of gotten it wrong. We've taken the grains and we're not soaking them properly, we're not fermenting them properly, we're turning them into flour, and they just raise blood sugar so quickly and they lead to weight gain. So taking out flour and refined carbohydrates I find to be extremely helpful for weight loss. And then along the lines of what Sadia was saying, thinking about sattvic foods versus tamasic foods or rajasic foods, if it's a food that your inner intelligence tells you is probably not good for you, which is often the foods that people crave when they have unhealthy cravings, that is not a sattvic food. So French fries, refined vegetable oils, extremely sweet foods, these things didn't really exist in ancient times. And they exist due to industrialization and mechanization. So you have to think about what your great-grandparents may have eaten and go back to that ancient knowledge there. So I would get rid of the refined carbs, and I would get rid of those tamasic foods that you kind of know are not going to make you feel very good afterwards, even if you're just really eager to eat them in that moment.
Beautiful. So I think that was what you guys heard, and something that's easy to start using starting tomorrow basically is focusing on freshly prepared foods, as Sadia mentioned, focusing on sattvic foods, adding some cabbage family, whether it's your kale or Brussels sprouts, and adding some sulfur-containing foods, right? Myra, let me ask you this specific question. So when somebody is trying, for example, to include more foods for weight balancing, and as Eric mentioned, they'll start to include more roughage, more fiber, more vegetables, and their system might not be used to so much fiber in the beginning. What are some ways to prepare foods, to serve foods that make it easier on the digestion? So if somebody is not used to eating lots of kale and lots of Brussels sprouts, it can be a little bit tough. So what are some ways that we can cook? Because your recipes and so the pictures are so incredibly beautiful. How can people learn how to cook in an easy way that doesn't take hours and hours?
Right. Well, starting with the freshest product that you possibly can is the first place. And having that food in a good proportion. One of the mistakes that people make is that they start eating, for example, too much of the dark leafy greens or the broccoli and cauliflower and say, oh, it's good for me, it has water content. How much is too much? And so what I suggest and what I've seen work very, very well is that we have about 60% augmenting food on our plate, which is things like whole grains or the sweet vegetables like pumpkin and sweet potato and that. And about 40% of what's on the plate would be of the extractive nature, things that have more of the bitter tastes, such as the dark leafy greens and broccoli, cauliflower, and such. And then the other item might be, for example, it might be a legume, or if you're a meat eater, then it'd be a small piece of meat. So that's kind of a good general layout that's going to keep you feeling grounded, but give you enough nourishment. Now, if somebody has a large weight, has a significant weight problem, and there's some health reasons that you might like to shift that a little bit, then you might go to 55-45. In other words, a little bit more emphasis on the extractive foods, being the more cleansing foods by their nature. The problem I see people getting into is they do too much of that. And when you do, then it makes people feel gassy, and then they say, oh, I can't have vegetables, they bother me too much. Or they live with the gas and they're kind of miserable, and then they're not digesting the food well, which then makes them crave looking for more food. So somewhere, in that
Myra, can you repeat this one? So if people are not digesting too many vegetables, so if they're eating just kale salad for lunch,
right,
and they're not digesting it well, and that's going to lead to more cravings, right?
Right. Well, what happens, that's right. That's correct. Yeah, if you're having too much of that extractive food, it'll tend to make you gassy. Some people, it will constipate them. And if you're not digesting the food, if you're having gas and constipation, you're not going to be getting much of the nutrients, if any, from it, which will then lead to more cravings. Also, those foods are much lighter, just putting it in a simple way. They're much lighter in the body by the tastes that they have in them, being the bitter and astringent particularly. And so we look for some grounding somewhere. And that's oftentimes people say, oh, I have to eat meat because I want to feel more grounded. But that's really kind of a false sense of grounding. And so we need some of that augmenting food. Even when we're in weight loss mode, we need some of that augmenting food to keep us feeling grounded and balanced in the process.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about spices. We kind of covered some of the foods. Let's talk a little bit about spices and how they can either affect whether we digest food or not. And as a result, if we don't digest food, we might have extra accumulation or puffiness. And how we can use some spices to help the digestion and probably help reaching a good weight. For somebody, it's going to be losing weight. For somebody, it's going to be gaining weight. So, Myra, I think since you are our chef, what do you have to say about spices?
Well, if someone is not accustomed to using them, it's nice to start maybe with just some fresh ginger, if it's available. And ginger and turmeric and cumin and coriander, they're sort of this basic four. That's one possibility, but even just starting with some ginger and turmeric and cooking with that, and a really simple way to prepare food with those spices, they could be in the cumin and the coriander, for example, could be a seed or a powder, and there's some differences in that. But let's say that you have some vegetables that you want to prepare. You can put some oil in the pan, so that would be, for example, ghee or another oil like sunflower or sesame oil, in the winter for most people. And then you heat that up and then put the spices in and let the spices cook a little bit so that their aroma comes up, so they wake up. It wakes up the life force in them. And that way they can provide, they offer up their qualities to the meal and to you taking in the meal. So it's going to bring up their qualities that enhance digestion, as well as enhancing the taste. And then it brings balance to the total meal. But then you put your vegetables in there, now that you have your oil and spices in there, and stir your vegetables in for a moment. And then I put some water in there, and it would vary depending on the vegetable and what I had in mind. But you put some water in, maybe a half an inch of water, for example, and then put a lid on it, and you just cook it for a few minutes. Maybe depending on your stove, could be just 2 minutes actually, and you get a nice color change in the vegetable, and the prana is awake now. Now it's the easiest to digest, and that's a really simple way to start to incorporate spices. And then you can start to experiment and add one more, take one away, and see what happens. Eventually, you might like to learn about the qualities of the spices and that. And as you get to know Ayurveda, you can think about it in a very natural way. You can say, okay, well, what's the primary taste that I experience? Or, what's the color of it, and how does it come in nature? Is it the root, or is it from the seed of the plant on top, and that kind of thing.
So it's basically a lot about slowing down and paying attention to how you react to spices. And I think a question that's going to be in mind for a lot of people who are trying to lose weight is, isn't oil fattening? How much oil can I use? And if I use one tiny spoon, then it's not enough to saute the spices. How can you comment to this?
For most people, still using, for example, if you were cooking for 2 people, and this is one of the dishes, and if you were to put 1 tablespoon of ghee in there, it would be enough to get the spices going very well, and then you can add some water to it. And that would vary a little bit. Again, if you're in a more of a weight loss mode, then you might keep it down just slightly below that. It would depend on the individual and their constitution in terms of
Okay.
what I might suggest. But that range is pretty good. And I know we're afraid of fat. The fear of fat is the big one. And the oil in that kind of quantity is not what's going to make you fat. You know,
And
all these
I
other
agree. I
things,
think actually
overeating.
adding healthy fats to the diet makes your appetite a lot more balanced, and it makes your skin much better. Um,
It
but
does. And it helps you to age more gracefully too,
good.
like keeping lubrication in the body. Yeah. Otherwise, the
Yeah.
body gets dried up very quickly.
Yeah. So I think it's a process for people to start using oils and not be afraid of it. So thank you for commenting on that. We have some questions which I think Noah is going to be very good at answering. So I'm going to bring Noah back. So Sadia, I'm going to turn you off for a little bit. So the question for Noah was, does Ayurveda, can Ayurveda do anything with flabbiness or not toned parts of the body? And another question that we had was, is trim support supplement from Banyan Botanicals warming? So Noah, if you could comment on that.
Yeah, so I'll start with the easy one first. So the trim support, you know, we've been talking a lot about these different qualities. And in general, weight management, we're trying to stimulate the digestion. We're trying to support proper metabolism. And so in general, that requires us to increase the heat of digestion. So in Ayurveda, we often look at the digestion as a digestive fire. And so the hotter that the fire is, the more it's able to burn through the different foods that we're consuming. And so the trim support supplement does increase the fire. There's one herb in particular called chitrach that is in that formula. That's a very spicy herb. It's even contraindicated to put it on the skin unless it's balanced with lime or something else because it has such a heating quality. And so it's antidoted with a lot of other herbs in that formula so that it can help to stimulate the digestion and help to support proper metabolism. So that's the answer to the trim support.
So
And then as far as
put trim support right on the screen.
thank you, Nadia. And so then as far as the flabbiness goes, Banyan has created a formula called Trim Balm. And so the Trim Balm formula is really focused on improving the circulation. So we're talking a lot about increasing heat. Well, one of the ways that heat is distributed through the body is through circulation. And Eric was talking also about detoxification. And so the circulation is one of the ways that we bring nutrients into the body, and then the kind of drains of the system or the lymphatics work to help to detox the system. And so this Trim Balm formula can really help to improve the circulation and in both directions. So improving nutrition to one area of the body and then also improving the body's ability to support that proper detoxification process or the natural detoxification process. And so the Trim Balm can help with any sort of flabbiness that may occur because there's not enough circulation or not enough warmth in that area of the body.
Perfect. So I think that answered the question. And while we are moving on to some of the herbs and some supplements that might be helping with weight management, we have a question from Anna, and she's asking, is raw cocoa drink with water and dates every day considered healthy? So I guess, Noah,
give us your opinion, and then I want to ask both Eric and Myra and see if we have different opinions on here.
Yeah, so in my opinion, it would really depend on that specific person's constitution and what they're trying to accomplish. In general, I would say the raw cacao can be a little bit stimulating. So if they have a Vata constitution, that could be a little overstimulating to their system. But dates and dates also with all the sugar can be a little bit overstimulating to the system. So I'd say in general, moderation is key, and doing that every day over a period of time could create some imbalance.
Okay. Myra, what is your opinion on raw cocoa?
It's not something that I recommend for people. I'm sure that there might be a situation that would be helpful for someone. You know, I along the lines of what Noah mentioned is that, you know, I don't really recommend people to take something, you know, herbs for a specific purpose for bringing balance to the doshas, because I really would suggest that people take whatever they choose to take in, that it always has that in mind, and not just because it's healthy for me. Yeah, because if my overall eating is in that moderate place and with a reasonable balance, then I'll get what I need. I wouldn't recommend that kind of a drink on a daily basis at all. You know, I use dates myself. I like fresh dates and that, but then you have one date, and you know, not a large amount, of course.
Yeah.
But I think that the approach of Ayurveda is so different that, you know, we're not looking for, oh, you know, I'm starving, so I have to go have a special drink or anything. It's better just to eat a meal. It's very satisfying, and I think that works pretty well.
Okay. So Eric, on the same question, but a slightly different turn. So if somebody was, because I think as people, especially as Westerners, with so many superfoods from all over the world being available, and us constantly looking for a quick answer for a pill that's going to bring us miracle benefits and solve all our problems, people will still go for raw cocoa or mesquite powder or carrot powder. Out of all those powders and foods and like goji berries and other stuff available, how would somebody choose which one would benefit them, which one should be in the rotation, and if it's going to have the effect that they're looking for? Not, like as Myra mentioned, not because it's just generally considered good and mineral dense or vitamin rich, but is it something that's going to be good for me in this climate and with my current, whatever is happening, balance or imbalance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the real superfoods are generally the ones that are real close by. You know, you don't have to bring a food in from halfway around the world to find a superfood. Fresh fruits and vegetables, whole grains, healthy oils, nuts and seeds. Those are your superfoods, really. And it's what the earth is yielding that's around you, and eating locally and seasonally. Sure, there are some fairly amazing properties that have been found of a lot of these so-called superfoods, and nature has given us incredible, unique foods that I think are more suited as medicine in a way. They're to support detoxification, to use as rejuvenative rasayanas. But it's generally not necessary to be having to import foods from far away places that are extremely hard to cultivate and expensive and whatnot. Most of the time, you do great with local, fresh, seasonal foods that are appropriate for your unique situation.
Yeah.
You know, cacao, for example.
Yeah.
You know, chocolate is probably one of the only foods I've ever seen on a doshic chart that raises Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, all three. So to me, that means it's medicine, not something to be taken all the time.
Yeah, I love this point of view that it is a medicine, that it can be taken occasionally, but understanding the effects and using things to balance it out. So you're using it in a smart, intelligent way, not just as a breakfast first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. And we have another question, which I think Noah is going to be able to help us with, is how important is maintaining routine with your meal times, and should sugar be avoided at all costs for proper weight management? And that's from Jody.
Yeah, so I think having meal times that are consistent is really beneficial for the body. So our bodies are part of nature, and nature has very specific cycles that it goes through. So seasonal cycles, circadian rhythms, daily cycles of light and dark. And so just like that, our body responds really well when we have very consistent cycles as far as our eating habits go and any other routines that we may have, so that our body is prepared for the food that we may be enjoying at any given meal. So that can really help with any sort of weight management. That's something we want to do. As far as the sugar question, sugar is such a broad term. Refined sugar, I think refined sugar should be avoided at any cost. Like Eric was mentioning as well, most refined flours have the same effect in the body as sugar. I would say that most natural sugars, though, dates, honey, licorice, other types of sugar, stevia, that are natural from the earth, can be taken in moderation. They can definitely help the body to reestablish balance depending on what's going on, and don't have to be necessarily avoided in weight management.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think licorice, if you have some licorice, ginger, mint tea, it can be a great thing that will cut that sugar craving, or at least reduce it.
Definitely.
So,
Yeah.
Noah, let's talk a little bit more about specific herbs or supplements that can help someone who has a weight problem to kind of get back into the balance, at least in the beginning, and then use lifestyle and relaxation and diet to sustain it.
Yeah, so we already talked a little bit about trim support. We've talked a little bit about trim balm. We've talked a little bit about triphala. Um, One of the other herbs that is often utilized to support metabolism is an herb that we're calling kapha digest, or trickatu. So it's a mixture of ginger, black pepper, and pipali, which is another kind of pepper. It's a long pepper. And so this has a very heating action for the system, really helps to support proper metabolism and to support digestion. So, I think one of the keys to weight management is efficient digestion. The more efficient our digestion is, the more we're either able to gain weight or to lose weight, if that's something that we're trying to accomplish. And so the kapha digest, or the trickatu formula, can be really helpful in supporting that. We've been talking a lot about the doshas and constitutions. In general, we find that it's the kapha constitution that tends to hold on to weight, that they tend to, because they have the qualities that are similar, they're heavy, they're cool, they have those qualities. And so the healthy kapha formula that we have developed also supports those people that have an excess of kapha, or maybe have a kapha constitution, that are trying to maintain a healthy weight for themselves. And so that formula is another formula that we've developed that can be really, really helpful in helping people achieve their health goals and achieve a weight where they feel really confident in their bodies.
Great, that's very helpful. And I think to just make a small note here for people, I agree with Noah that mostly kaphas will tend to retain weight, but I also have seen lots of pittas and vatas retain weight, but in a different way. So pittas will overeat or overindulge, and vatas will have lots of emotional eating. So if you are experiencing weight gain, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a lot of kapha. So I think it's a matter of being very intelligent and maybe actually calling the Indian botanicals before you choose the supplement that would be right for you, or sending out an email to Noah. Noah, would you mind sharing an email if
No,
people
not
have
at all.
questions?
So it's Noah, Noah, at BannionBotanicals.com. So feel free to email me. I'd be happy to help you choose the right herb for you.
Yeah, guys. So I think that, thank you, Noah. That's very generous of you. I think that's probably, if you are serious about choosing the supplement, that's probably a better way to go, or talking to a local practitioner, because sometimes as internally it might be a little bit difficult to understand what's happening, and to understand whether it's kapha, pitta, or vata. And it's good to have somebody like Noah who understands the product and understands Ayurveda to help guide you through the process. So Anna Maria Sierra is saying that triphala, and there was another herb recommended for weight loss at the beginning. Do you guys remember if we did mention any other herbs in the beginning? Oh, chitrak. Okay, Sadia did answer that, chitrak. Okay, so do you guys have, so basically what I want to do now is have like the last sentence, or the last something that you have to say for people who are on this weight loss journey, and that's only the beginning of the year, so they still have a full year ahead of them. What would you tell them? So next January, they're not in the same place. So by next January, they're at the weight where they feel comfortable and they don't have to think about weight loss anymore. So what would you tell them, starting with Myra?
I think that I'd start with accepting your starting point, being right where you are, and approaching the change of bringing your weight into a balanced place through as an act of self-care and self-love. And sometimes people have a lot of emotions to clear around that. But with that, then you can start to take gradual steps. Baby steps is what I recommend. And from there, just start learning more and more. The basic, simple practices of ways of living are things that most of the time, if we're doing something different than other people, they get curious about it and they might even want to join us. So sometimes we think, oh, but I can't make those changes and that. But really we can. And it comes through self-care and self-love. So that's some of the first steps that I would take, and then along with a lot of the other information that we've talked about this evening.
Thank you, Myra. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
I'm going to put Sadia back instead of Myra, and we're going to listen to Eric right now.
Okay. I think I'll start with one thing that's very much on the sort of scientific Western medicine side of my practice, and then I'll say something that's more on the Ayurvedic side. From the science, the best evidence for weight loss is exercise. So you can look at all the literature on weight loss, and the number one thing that promotes weight loss is movement and exercise. We have forgotten how to do that in a modern society to some extent. Think about what our ancestors did. They were moving all the time. So that's important. From a more Ayurvedic perspective, I echo what Myra said, is you need to have an emotional connection to yourself. You need to ignore what you're seeing in media, print media, television media, social media. Forget about comparing yourself to anybody else. Look in the mirror and love the person that you see in front of you, no matter what size or shape that is. And that's where the journey towards healthy weight will begin.
That's beautiful. And don't ignore all the media. Don't ignore us. We're trying to help.
Right. Ignore your perception of what you should be based on the media.
Yes. I'm just joking. Sadia?
Just simply put, I want to say that it's really important to go towards fresh food, as we talked about, and to not eat to your full satisfaction. So really leaving space for a third for food, a third for liquids, and a third empty. And I think in our society, it's such a society of excessiveness that this is very important. Um, Also, I really like what Eric and Myra said about self-love, because I think that's the root of it. Eating more mindfully. We eat to fill that void sometimes for self-love. So incorporating practices into your life like abhyanga, which is actually the word for oil is sneha, which also translates to love. So it is this time of self-love and self-care. So getting to know yourself and being gentle with yourself, starting with one or two things and gradually incorporating more and more into your life.
Beautiful. Noah?
So I'd say from a year from now, really focusing on community. I think community is one of the ways that we can really achieve our goals and set intentions and make those intentions come to fruition. And that's really what Banyan Botanicals is all about, is supporting people's Ayurvedic lifestyle and helping to build community and helping to bring people together, just like this webinar that we're doing tonight. And so I feel that really, letting people know what your intentions are, letting them support you, finding a good support network, and putting it out there that that's something that's really important to you. Sharing a part of yourself with other people really helps to, helps all of us to recognize where we're at and how we can support each individual to achieve their full potential.
Really nice. Well, I want to share just one thing from myself as well, since I work with so many women around emotional eating and around weight loss, which often leads to digestive issues. So one of the things that I noticed is that a lot of us have to go through a habit change when we try to change our weight, because it's not just the food that makes us gain weight, it's often the habits around eating and around our lifestyle that get us to gain weight. And what I found, one of the best ways to find your ideal weight is to really imagine the person that you want to bring forth, the person that you want to become, and to connect to that person so much, so much that you know how that person will eat. You will know how they will react to stress, how much he or she exercises, and use that vision, use that image to guide you through most difficult situations. So if you are right now the person who eats standing in the kitchen, if you are the person who reacts to stress by going and eating cookies, if you are the person who eats only in front of the computer, connect to the image of the person that you want to become and let him or her guide you in changing those habits. So start eating gracefully by closing the computer. Go for a walk when you feel stressed. And I think what I've seen with other women, it's a very powerful way to let that inspiration stay with you throughout the difficult road of changing habits. So that's my tip. But otherwise, thank you everyone for being with us. Noah, I have a question for you. So we are doing, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are doing a giveaway from Banyan Botanicals. And everyone who was on today's webinar is going to be entered in the giveaway. So my assumption is that Aaron will be choosing the winner, right?
That's correct.
Yes. So guys, to let you know, Banyan Botanicals will be choosing the winner, one of you who was present on the webinar. And we have everyone registered, all your beautiful names and faces. So Banyan Botanicals will be emailing and letting us know who the winner is. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You will be able to watch the recording. We'll try to cut out the first half an hour where we were just preparing. And if you have any questions, please post on Banyan Botanicals Facebook or Spinach and Yoga Facebook. And we will also send you emails for all the Ayurvedic practitioners who are participating in today's panel. So thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.